ago. Well, we're going to win. The new Coke is it at Charlotte.
Well, the Porsche's no pushover, but the Jaguar's going to eat it for breakfast.
Everybody's been telling you that they're going to win this race, but let me tell you the truth. The 711 Mustang Probe is going to win this weekend here at Charlotte.
Live coverage of the Charlotte Grand Prix is being brought to you by Dodge, a performance revolution, an American revolution. And by the Stroh Brewing Company, brewers of Stroh's, Old Milwaukee, and other fine beers. And by B.F. Goodrich, makers of a complete line of high-performance TA radios. And by CNN and CNN Headlines, cable's most important networks.
In the beautiful rolling countryside of North Carolina, there is the Charlotte Motor Speedway, a unique racing complex. In the past 5 years, some $17 million has been expended to make this facility the benchmark for racing in North America. And good day to you. It's a glorious one as we speak to you live from the Charlotte Motor Speedway. I'm Ken Squire. With me is David Hobbs. And today, it's the International Motorsports Association. The super slick, most exotic, fastest cars in the world. These are the Star Wars cars. The kind of cars that would make a perfect setting for a Luke Skywalker to fend off a Darth Vader, David.
Well, Ken, you're right. These cars have unlimited turbo boost and they have unlimited fuel. So the power output is round about the 750 mark. And they'll see speeds in excess of 230 miles an hour on some circuits, and here at Charlotte they'll be pulling close to 200 as they go into the North Banking. This is the most exotic racing in the world, and of course it's a tremendously healthy series, IMSA. We have a lot of major manufacturers down there involved, both tire and car, and there's more coming. So this series is really on the way to being one of the wealthiest and healthiest in motorsports.
Our onboard camera will lie with the car starting 8th today, the car that won at Riverside, California, the BFG car, with Jim Busby at the controls to start the race today, and you'll be seeing action throughout the day in this 500-kilometer, 310-mile race from that particular car. Let's meet now the people involved in today's race. They're the real story of IMSA racing, and the man on the pole is one of the very best.
Well, down here now with Al Holbert, the pole winner. And Al, what's your strategy in this long race this afternoon?
Lead every lap. We've got to do at least one pit stop, most likely two, and we need to take good care of the tires. So I'm going to just set the pace based on the pace that I think it needs to preserve the tires. And if that means running second or third, that's what I'll do, unless somebody wants to get real far away, and then I'll have to chase them and change tires if I have to.
Being as hot as it is today, are the tires going to be very critical in the wear?
The wear doesn't seem to be a problem, but we seem to, our car and the way we drive it, I guess, seems to abuse them a little bit, and we need to pay attention to preserving them, not so much for wear, but just for heat.
Do you expect competition to be toughest from whom?
Well, of course, the Buick. I see what, Bill's starting, so that means John's going to run the long shift. Of course, the Jags, they go forever on fuel. So, they'll be there, make up time on our second stop. And of course, the Ford is really unknown, the potential of that car. I think it's quite a nicely done car, and it could be a real surprise. So the Buick is the one that really we're going to have to pay attention to most.
Okay, well, over with that Buick right now is Chris Economaki.
Okay, thanks very much, Jerry. With me is John Paul Jr., the co-driver on car number 45 that's starting outside in the front row. His teammate Bill Adam will start the car. John was away yesterday in Indianapolis qualifying for the 500. John, I know this race is important to you. The Indy 500 obviously is very important. Is this muddling your thoughts a little bit about this weekend of racing here and there?
No, actually, I think it helped me keep my peace of mind and keep the frustration and the butterflies away. It really kept, I got to jump back and forth, and I felt pretty good at both places.
Can you step out of one kind of car, an open-wheel car, a 210-mile-an-hour car, and get back into this closed car without having to sort of reacquaint yourself with the machinery?
Well, it does take a few laps, but they're so vastly different that it really is easy to get comfortable after 2 or 3 laps.
John, the Buick engine in your car has got everybody talking. It's in the front row at Indianapolis. It's the same engine that's in your car here. Is it right for this racetrack and today?
I think so. The straightaways are long enough. It's to our advantage. The infield is very slow, and we have lots of torque on the low end. So I really think the place is suited to us much more so than the other cars.
A little bit about the race itself. 1 stop for driver change and 2 stops for fuel. Do I have that right?
Yeah, we'll have to make 2 fuel stops. Unfortunately, the thing has incredible horsepower, but it takes some fuel to do it. So that's the one problem we do have is going the distance.
All right, good luck to you, John, and your co-driver, Bill Adam. Now, up top side to Dave Despain.
Here in the STP Pit Communications Center today, we're going to be looking for the answer to the key question in endurance racing. Right behind us on pit road, the crews work on the problem: how to make the car live for 500 grueling kilometers. It's a strategy issue. How fast do you go? How hard do you push? Keep the car healthy and still run up front. Answer that question right, you go over here on the leaderboard. Answer it wrong, and you'll be down on the end on the attrition list. We'll follow the David and Goliath story of the Camel Light cars. These are miniaturized GTP prototypes. They're lighter with a lot less horsepower. They have their own race within a race. 2 things set the Charlotte course apart. It's located within the confines of a stock car oval. From the grandstand, you can see every corner. Last year, this race had the biggest crowd on the circuit. And secondly, up there, turn 4 of the stock car track, the most difficult course turn in IMSA racing. We're going to take a tour of the course right now and see this 2¼ mile oval with Jim Busby and Bill Olson.
The GTP cars come off of the banking, come past the start-finish line at about 190 miles an hour. At that point, you apply the brakes very, very hard, pull it down into 3rd gear. We skip from 5th to 3rd, go through the first part of what I call turn 1, which is turns out to be a double corner, but with our car, we take it as 1. And we sweep through that in 3rd gear, accelerate down the little short chute, into the second right-hander, which I call turn 2, which is probably called turn 3. Brake very hard and put the car in 2nd.
Well, Jim, we do the same thing. We treat the first, second corner as the same sort of one big radius turn, then the little quick right-hander down over a hill, and you have to be careful the grade change there doesn't upset you, and then the same thing. We can run that either in 2nd or 3rd. That little Buick has so much torque, I think 2nd is quicker.
This is another place where the 2 cars vary. With smaller cars also are lighter and probably are as quick, if not quicker, through most of these corners on the infield, because you have to remember that the GTP car weighs over 1,800 pounds, and the GTP junior cars probably weigh, 16 or 1,700 pounds.
For sure, the most crucial corner is the one that leads before the main straight. And I think the key to that over-the-hill left-hand combination is really almost giving away the uphill right-hander before it. And get the car settled over to the right side of the racetrack and carry it on up to the banking.
Our car immediately goes into 5th gear. So we're probably at about 1.9 Gs through that first corner. And then we come out on the back straight. We've got the old rocket sled in gear at that point, and we start down that back straight. In the big turbocharged Porsches, certainly the toughest corner on the course would be turn 3 and 4 on the banked oval. When we come in there, it's really a white knuckle express. You come down in there and just lift, get it back on the floor, and really hang on for dear life all the way around that thing. And it's always in the back of your mind, unfortunately, that if there's somebody blocking you, you come out of the throttle, you don't really know what's going to happen. So not only is it the most difficult, it certainly is the most frightening.
We come down off of turn 4, carrying maximum revs again, 87, 8800. Across the start-finish line, and then it's that hard braking, downshifting to get into turn 1, and I just can't seem to get that right. Perhaps in the race it'll come to me, but my timing so far is off. And as I said, you treat that one in turn 2 as one big turn, so if you throw the first part of it, you've really lost a lot of ground.
Okay, there's always last-minute drama in these races, and I'm standing in starting place number 3 that's vacant. The car that is most watched, most looked upon, with all the money that Ford Motor Company could spend on racing, and the new Probe is not here. Water was found in its engine this morning. They're changing engines. They hope to get it here, maybe on the parade lap. And we'll be back for the start of the Camel 500-kilometer race after this message. Entrance, and the Ford lovers around the country, your car is here. It just arrived. Klaus Ludwig at the wheel. Last-minute adjustments being made. And now to Ken Squire for the starting lineup.
The command has been given to fire the engines. Just a few moments, and they will be turning them loose here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway on the 2.25-mile, 9-turn course. Let's meet the men who will be racing today. On the pole with a record of 1 minute 4 and 921 thousandths of a second is that Porsche 962 of Al Holbert and the great Le Mans champion Derek Bell. On the outside of row 1 is the Buick March, the American V6 turbo-powered Buick, and it will be John Paul and Bill Adam in that car. Going to row number 2, that's the Ford, Klaus Ludwig, in the second performance for this brand new prototype, and from Georgia, Doc Bundy. In row 3, Pete Halsmer and John Morton, who won for B.F. Goodrich at Riverside, California, just a few Sundays back in their Porsche 962. On the outside, on the inside of row 3 comes the great champion, formerly of England, Brian Redman, with the Jaguar V12, and with him, of course, Hurley Haywood. Outside of the third row, the car that took second in that Road Atlanta performance, Bob Tullius and Chip Robinson, when Brian Redman went on to victory. Those are the cars in the front 3 row, and here are the rest of the starters in today's program. John Kalajian has qualified very well with his car number 15 Porsche March. It'll be Tommy Grunno working with him. There's Jim Busby and Rick Knoop. They'll have our camera on board. Going to row 5. There you'll find the Shelton brothers out of Florida in their Chevy March. Then comes Billy Hagan, who owns the stock car of Terry Labonte, running at Dover, Delaware this afternoon, and the great Carson Baird. Row 6 is Jim Truman, and he is teamed with his new protege, Ludwig Heimrath. Bob Aiken is next, and Jim Mullen. That's a car to really watch here today, car number 5, a Porsche 962. Ken Martin and Wayne Pickering with their Buick March come next in the field. The Anderson-born car crashed in practice, will not be out today. Car number 33. It crashed just this morning. Row 8, Jimmy Leeward, Emery Donaldson. What a great story on Leeward. We'll be telling you more about it later. Jim Downing, that's the first of the Camel Light cars as the field begins to roll out. It's Walt Boren working with Al Leon in one of the Leon cars out of Texas, that's being the Chevy March. Then comes Charles Morgan and Indy veteran Bill Alsop, now back into this form of racing. And you're inside for just a moment as we see the rest of the field of Busby's BFG car as it rolls away. The Polly Marsh car in row 10. The Porsche March with Art Leon and Marty Hines comes up next. Going to row 11, Ira Young is there. That Mazda, Jeff Klein with him. Number 75. Then in the Camel Light series, here's Peter Greenfield's car, Robert Hurlin. Going to row number 12, Warner Frank and Dave White, start number 26. And then you see the team of Nicholson and Bertzel today with their Mazda. Row 13, Tom Hessert, Stephen Durst coming out here with a Mazda, a Harrier no less. Old name. Now this is an interesting car. Mike von Steenberg and Larry O'Brien, the $15,000 prototype. More on that later. In row 14 for today's race, that car crashed in practice this morning. It was one of the major forces in yesterday's race, number 97 Corvette, the Seifers car, in problems, not coming out. Gene Felton is back with Tommy Riggins in that GTO Firebird. And finally, going to row 15, Dan Schott and his Firebird, number 31. Roger Mandeville and Danny Smith, row 15 outside as we get set for the start of this 310 500-kilometer event. Let's go to Dave Despain at the STP Pit Center.
Well,
we're quickly with Derek Bell in the pole-sitting car. You've got a new game plan here in your 20th year of racing. Tell me about that.
Well, I've been reading a book on how to called Eat to Win. The only trouble is all I've done ever since is have second places, but I'm hoping it'll work today. Basically, it's just a high carbohydrate diet.
Down at Daytona, you took $100 bills from us all day long for leading the 24 hours here on TBS Sports. Today, in honor of Eat to Win, for every lap that you lead, a biscuit, and for if you win the race, a drumstick, okay?
Well, what, no grits? I thought that's what you meant to eat down here.
Can you win this thing today?
We'll be trying very hard, but we'll have to see how we get on with the tires. That's going to be the main problem.
That's the key issue is tires. Derek Bell will start along with Al Holbert. Holbert in the car now, and that's the pole-sitting machine. Ken?
As they come through turn number 8 of the 2.25-mile course, the 24-degree banking. Some say this is the fastest part of the course, David, when they whip down here by the start-finish line. Al Holbert was saying it's definitely quicker for him going into turn number 3 of the super speedway.
Well, of course, it depends how they go through the banking. Some of them, there's somebody jumping the start, number 62, the Chevrolet March, pulled down on the inside, but it didn't do much good.
And the Ford jumps out in front as they quickly go down into turn number 1. It is the Ford going in the lead, and the driver in the Ford to start today will be Klaus Ludwig. Ludwig putting the Ford in front as the field rolls away to start the Charlotte Grand Prix.
Yeah, that Ford making a good start. They had a bit of bad news this morning when they found the water in the oil, and they've only, as we all saw, they've only just got it to the grid, but he's trying to make the best of it while he can, and Al Holbert lurking there in second spot. This is going to be the strong car. The number 14 Porsche of Holbert and Bell is going to be very, very hard to beat.
We saw the number 60.
Whoa, and there's, I think that's the March Buick. Got all sideways there. I hope it is the March Buick too. Number 45, Bill Adam, got right out of shape there. Oh dear, this team, this Phil Conti team has the most appalling luck this year. They haven't finished a race yet. And if he's not careful, he's right at the back of the field. He is now absolutely dead last.
Car number 45 coming back on with Jim Adam now at the controls. There's the lead car. That's the Ford Probe as they come down through the banking for the first time. Second place car closing ground is Al Holbert. Al Holbert in the 14 moving up at over 185 miles an hour down into the hardest braking section of the course going to turn 1. Holbert moves up on the Ford Probe.
Well, of course, one of the advantages the Porsche's got is it's got much more cubic capacity than the little Ford. The Ford is only a 2-litre or 120 cubic inches, whereas the Porsche, of course, is a 3.2 litre, a much bigger engine. And right behind Holbert is the first of the Goodrich cars going well.
Hosmer and Morton, who won at Riverside, California, lie third on the field. And then there is a big interval back to the 4th position.
Well, this is a 500-kilometer race. By NASCAR standards, of course, that's not quite as long as they run, but on the other hand, there's a lot more turns, gear shifting, braking. This is pretty hard on the cars.
As we watch that lead Ford Probe, you've got to wonder what Klaus Ludwig is thinking about, David Hobbs, because that is a brand new engine. We mentioned earlier there was water in the oil this morning, and they had to change that engine. As we saw, the engine change didn't get completed until the parade lap. Ludwig has quickly gone to the front. He's pushing the motor hard, but I can't help but wonder if he's not wondering about the reliability. Not only is it a brand new car overall, but it's got an untried engine in the compartment.
Well, Ford at the moment are absolutely desperate to finish a race. They came out with this type of prototype car 2 years ago with the first and the second at Elkhart Lake, and since then they've barely finished a race, so they're really, really anxious to finish. And I think you'll find they're running less boost than they would like to from horsepower point of view. On the other hand, he doesn't look like it now, does he? I mean, he's still holding on to that lead, but in the back of his mind, he really wants to finish this race.
2 Porsche 962s follow the Ford Probe as they go through the infield portion of the course. As they line them up now, Halsmer in the number 68 car runs 3rd, Busby 4th for the BFG team. Then it's the Jaguars running in 5th and 6th. Hurley Haywood's 04, followed by Bob Tullius in the 44. And Carson Baird has moved car number 4 into 7th position overall.
As we see the cars come up onto the banking there, Ludwig seems to get a bit of a jump on that Porsche. The car is the same weight as the Porsche. In fact, the car is actually a little bit heavier than the Porsche. There's some strange anomaly of the rules here, and it weighs about 90 pounds more than the Porsche for some reason. But he's certainly hanging on to his lead. But the car looks a little bit skittish to me in the infield.
One car slowing, and car number 10. Number 10, I think that's the Jimmy Leeward car. They just changed the motor on that car yesterday. Very famous car that Bobby Rahal won some races in. People may remember from 1983 at Sebring and at Daytona. Here's your leader, the Ford Probe in front, and right behind him, Al Holbert. challenging.
Well, you see that the probe to me looks a little bit tail happy there, which on this circuit could be bad news for tyre wear, because tyres are going to play a major part in this race because of that long bank turn in the north end of the circuit, which these cars and tyres aren't really designed for.
Now you're inside of Jim Busby's car, which is running in the 4th position. You're in the BF Goodrich, car number 67, second place finisher of Riverside, California, and the team car won that event. You remember you saw them come across on Motor Week Illustrated. 1-2.
This car that Jim's driving, in fact, is the car that I drove last year in the World Endurance Championship in Europe. And so that steering wheel and dashboard's pretty familiar to me. This view going around the banking is not. I haven't driven here at Charlotte. But he's now coming up to round about 195 miles an hour. On the gear chart, they show 190, but when you take into account tyre growth, they're pulling close to 200.
Now, most cars on ovals, driver sits on the left. Sports cars, because of the number of right-hand turns, they sit on the right, and it puts them right up against the wall. And that's got to be some sensation, David.
Well, it definitely makes scraping the wall, as the NASCAR guys do, with such frequency, obviously a little bit more hairy, because you are next to the wall yourself. There we see the probe still leading, starting to come into lap traffic now. Holbert hanging on right there. Holbert's in no real rush here. He's got a lot of time, and he's got a great co-driver. Well, I say great, he's okay.
Don Devendorf crashed coming off the high banking of turn 3 in the Nissan car. That prototype was wrecked yesterday morning, will not race, and there's a good chance that it may not be available for Lime Rock, Connecticut on May the 27th.
But if they're using the same car as crashed yesterday, it definitely will not be ready for Lime Rock, Connecticut. I mean, it was really badly bent out of shape. There we see the Porsche hanging onto the probe, and I think he's going to make a shot at passing him this time. Yeah.
Holbert down to the inside.
Use the draft of the probe. Whistles down the inside.
This is happening in lap number 5. In lap number 5, Al Holbert is pushing his Porsche into the lead, and falling to second goes the Klaus Ludwig car. Ford Pro back into second position as they go to turn 1, with traffic in front of them as they scoot down into this very hard-braking, most difficult part of the course to get in there right.
Ooh, 2 lap cars there. The first one staying right out of the way. The one they're just about to lap now, that's Jim Downing, who's in fact leading the Camel Light class. So it just shows the difference between the main GTP protagonist and the Camel Light car. Puff of smoke out of somebody there. I wasn't sure whether it was Al Holbert's car or the Downing Mazda. Ooh, there's Downing. Yeah, slips between the 2 leaders, and this, of course, is the sort of thing that can be pretty frustrating to the second guy.
That little red car is Jim Downing, the man who, as much as any driver, has helped to organize this Camel Light series, which has added new life to prototype racing. It gives folks that don't have the wherewithal to go out and perform and to run in prototype cars with engines that you can get a lot of wear out, a lot of use out over the year, and not spend the hundreds of thousands of dollars necessary for a car like this number 14.
Well, it does cost a lot of money, but like I said at the top of the show, we've got a lot of interest in manufacturers now. Porsche, Jaguar, Nissan, Toyota are getting involved. So I think that money from that point of view is not such a big problem. And of course, it's what makes good racing.
6 laps are now complete. And we have Al Holbert leading, Klaus Ludwig in second, Halsmer is third, Busby fourth, Brian Redmond in fifth, Tullius in sixth. Gone back in front and leads by about 15 car lengths as they enter turn number 1. It is Ludwig in front. Al Holbert is back in second position. He overtook him coming down the straightaway into turn number 1, and Ludwig puts this 4-cylinder car back in the lead of this great prototype Charlotte Grand Prix.
Well,
let's go to Chris Economaki quickly for a report from the Ford pits.
Okay, I'm with Alan Smith, the team manager. Alan, that engine change, is the car right for today? Is the car as good as it was yesterday before they had trouble with the engine?
Yeah, the car is fine. It's just an unplanned engine change today, something that we didn't expect. But, you know, it was a very fast change, so we'll just have to see how it goes now.
You expect to go the distance?
We certainly hope so.
Okay, Alan Smith, the team manager, says that the Ford is out there for the full distance. Back to you, Ken.
310 miles, the full distance to be run today, and right now it has the advantage over Al Holbert in the Porsche 962, the 6-cylinder turbo-powered car.
Now, another thing that's going to play, I'm sure, an active part in today's race is that, like the Daytona 500 that we saw earlier in the year, the temperature has gone up today quite considerably from yesterday, which will have a detrimental effect on these turbochargers and on the tires, which are already somewhat marginal. So it'll be very interesting to see how they get on, especially the 2 Goodrich cars, which are using tires which are certainly based on street-type tires.
And they have already scored 1 victory, and it was a sweep earlier this year. Here you see the field down through that second turn. There are a total of 9 laps now complete. 9 laps have been completed of the distance to be run on this 2.25-mile track. There's the leader. It is the Ford Probe out in front.
Coming up to lap Dave White in the Porsche 935, which until only 3 years ago, or 2 years ago really, the 935 was absolutely the car to have in IMSA GTP racing, and here we see it being put a lap down already.
Car number 45 has come back to the 13th position after spinning earlier. The John Paul Adam car has moved all the way back up to third. There you see it. There's the Buick March, the V6 American engine March car. John Paul Jr. and Adam, the drivers, in car number 45, which is working its way, marching back to the field from dead last.
It's doing very well. He's only 27 seconds behind the leader, and one of his last laps was about a 1 minute 10 seconds, which is only just a few seconds slower than they qualified at, and in all his traffic, he's obviously pressing on pretty hard.
Quick update on another car that's going to have to catch up, Ken. Our Camel Light pole-sitting car. Jim Downey and John Mafucci have been in and out of the pits. They thought they had a flat tire, couldn't find anything wrong, and went back out, but they've now fallen well down into the Camel Light field.
Well, Ford had a disastrous day here yesterday in the GTO race. They lost both of their top cars after a brilliant drive by Lynn St. James, one of the finest performances we've ever seen in that GTO category. She worked the car up in front. They made a driver change, and unfortunately for Bruce Jenner, just as he came out for his first lap, a car spun in front of him and backed across the track and took out the leader, knocking them out of competition. And the Jones car had a terrible crash with Dennis Ossie in the main straightaway, and that car was eliminated with Dennis Ossie's Toyota from that 300-kilometer event yesterday. We'll have an update on that story and show you the pictures later this afternoon from the action that took place here at Charlotte yesterday.
Meanwhile, the Probe seems to be putting a bit of daylight between himself and Al Holbert, but a sight that is not guaranteed to gladden the heart of any promoter is the fact that there's 4 reasonably competitive cars all on pit lane at the moment. Not a good omen this early in the race. The Probe probing the field, pushing on, definitely opening out ground on Al Holbert. But I don't suppose Al Holbert's about to panic just yet.
Oh, no, indeed. The veteran Al Holbert stays right up there in second place. Al Holbert looking for another victory today, well over 30. There from the helicopter, you see the view. The infield packed where they can park in the infield. Now we're looking at the battle for the 4th and 5th position here. And that is 5th and 6th at the present time. That is the Haywood car and the Bob Tullius Jaguars working their way through the infield portion of the course. Might be one of the Camel Light cars there.
The gap between the leaders and Bill Adams still remains at around about 29 or 30 seconds, but of course they're all in traffic, so I suppose it's 6 to 1, half does the other. But 30 seconds behind at this stage of the race, of course, is no big problem.
Al Holbert working on his 34th victory in the International Motorsports Association, leading the point standings currently, running in second to the leader. There's the Probe out in front.